Understanding subject to real estate. Want to know more? Let's talk. Understanding subject to real estate. What's going on, guys? How are you? Want to know more? Smash the calendar link. Ampersand, let's talk. What's going on, people? How are you? All right, we're back. We gave you the breakdown on assignment of contract. I hope you guys like that. I hope you understand the ins and outs and some of the pitfalls and how you can avoid them. Also, how you can be absolutely trigger happy and tie up every real estate deal you come in contact with. I want you to practice getting people put pen to paper and sign shit. That is your job. Get in the door, get black ink on white paper, make a bunch of money, continue. All right, let's get into subject 2 without any further ado. I'll scroll down here through my slides. And I think you guys are really going to enjoy this. This is another inexhaustible resource. All right, let's talk about subject 2 deals. All right, subject 2, right? So property is purchased subject to all of its existing liens and or judgments. You are not taking over somebody's debt. All right, that is literally and virtually impossible after the Federal Depository Act of 1980, I believe it's 2 or 5, which was later invalidated by the Garn St. Germain court case. You could look this stuff up, you could read up about it. Technically, it will say the only way to legally do this is going to be to take the property out of the previous owner's name and put it into a land trust for estate planning purposes. That is the only situation where the bank cannot call the loan due. However, we know banks, and as long as you're making your payments on time, you're probably not going to have any issues whatsoever. And I'm just going to take you through it. We'll figure it out as we go, and you will learn and take notes. You'll be able to go back and watch this over and over again. So the property is purchased subject to all its existing liens and or judgments. So if there's mortgages that are outstanding, you're going to buy the property for the principal amount of the outstanding mortgage, not taking it over because that's not possible, and not taking out a new mortgage. It remains in the previous owner's name. If you make the payments on time, it actually helps their credit. If you don't, well, it's going the other way. And if it was in pre-foreclosure when you got it, it's already affecting their credit negatively, and it's already being called due. You honestly can only make the situation better. It's not like you can make them in foreclosure, or it's a running joke, but it's not going to happen. Title will be transferred to you via deed. So somebody is going to take the property and they're going to sign a deed over to you. The minute their pen comes off the piece of paper that signs the deed. We know we are now the owner, even though that deed may not appear in the courthouse for months, even years later, maybe not at all. But if ever somebody ever says you don't own it, you can produce the documentation that says you do, and it will hold up in court. The mortgage will stay in the previous owner's name. Now, if you're putting it into an LLC, not that they're going to, but banks can find out that the LLC is not owned by the same person. Second of all, the law does not provide for a loophole there, but lawyers do this all the time. I think technically it is not illegal, but it is actually breach of a contract, and it is your mortgage contract with the bank if you were the one who took out the loan. You do have to pay transfer tax if you take a property out of somebody's name and transfer it into your name subject to, or if you take it out of your name and transfer it into your LLC subject to. You need to pay transfer tax, which in my state, New Jersey, the greatest state of them all, the armpit of the East, would be approximately 1% of the outstanding debt. So if the mortgage is $300,000, you got to pay transfer tax on $300,000. 1% would be $3,000. It's not going to break the bank, but we're not exactly doing nothing down real estate anymore. If you learn to create and exploit land trusts, and if you need our help, let us know. You can actually take the property out of the previous owner's name, deed it into a land trust. I name all my trusts after the property, the 123 Main Street Trust. And conceptually, that is for estate planning purposes. And because the court system does not know who the beneficiary of the trust is, it is automatically assumed that it is the previous owner, but now the trust owns it, and nobody gets to know who the beneficiary is. The law does provide for a loophole here. They say it's going from one person to the same person and planning for an estate, and this is what rich people do. There's no transfer tax. You just save a considerable amount of money. And if you did want to hold on to these things and pass them on for generations, when you die and give it to your kids, your kids' kids, your kids' kids' kids, there is no inheritance tax or transfer tax. It stays in the same trust. This is what the Rockefellers did. But this is not about trusts completely. This is about buying subject to. So let's get back on track. You pay your transfer tax at the courthouse at the time you record your deed. You will either walk your deed in or mail it in. You'll figure out what the transfer tax is. You give them everything in the right format. You may have to put a cover sheet on it. Your courthouse can walk you through this. Don't expect them to be friendly. This is where you come up with the term good enough for government work. Okay, your job is to appease them and get it recorded. When it's recorded, you are now the new owner of record. Okay, the minute the pen came off the paper, you're the owner. Now you're the owner of record, and the general public knows that you're the owner. The property is resold to either a new owner, or you can rent it out using a use and occupancy, or some states a rent-to-own agreement, where you would find somebody who we would call a tenant buyer, many times with lots of cash, probably not the greatest credit. A lot of times this is going to be your local business owner, the guy who owns the pizza parlor, some shit like that, where they go, look, I want to buy a house. I can't get one anywhere else. This is conveniently located. I'll give you $10,000 down in cash. You come by the pizza shop every week and pick up the rent, or every month and pick up the mortgage, whatever it is. I just need a place to live with my 29 kids and my brother-in-law, Vito. True story. While they're doing that, you can help them establish or repair their credit. Okay, you will get them qualified for a loan if the end goal is to sell the property. When they're qualified for a loan, you will then write up a new purchase and sales agreement for the amount you agreed on. They will get qualified. They will get cleared to close. There will be a closing. And if you were making money on it monthly, right, you just killed the goose that laid the golden egg for a big check at the end. Transfer tax will be paid again to transfer the deed out of your name onto the new owner, and you get a pretty big check. So one of the biggest questions that I get on this, and I found that this is actually the wording that you use in the deed. If you are buying a property subject to its existing debt with a current mortgage outstanding in every county in New Jersey that we've been in, which is every county, also in New York, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut, and I believe, or so I'm told, in the original 13 colonies that are on the English title system, this is the wording that is acceptable for a subject to deal for the consideration on your deed. Transfer of ownership. Grantor grants and conveys. Transfer of ownership. The property, called the property, described below to the grantee. This transfer is made for the sum of dollar amount in words. Okay. Dollar amount in numbers. You need to write it both out. I don't know why, but you do, probably so there's no confusion. This sum represents, and this is where you get big bucks, this sum represents the current outstanding principal balance in the mortgage. That is actually correct grammar for this situation. In favor of, you put the name of the seller there, John Smith or whoever you bought it from, to which grantee is taking title subject to. I know that doesn't sound like fucking English. This is legalese, and that's the world you chose to play in if you got in the world of real estate. It is not as easy and not as simple as all these people on YouTube are making it out to be. You could refer back to the slide. This is also in the cookbook style binder I've provided you with, and it will definitely help you out. Okay, this is what your transaction is going to typically look like for a subject to. You're going to meet a seller. There's going to be a deed and a mortgage in the name of a seller. They are going to sign all your paperwork, your purchase and sales agreements. They're going to sign the deed. They're going to sign everything. You're going to decide after the fact, after you've ordered your payoff, you've ordered your title search, and you've clouded your title, that this is a viable deal and it's something you want to take subject to. And that's because usually there's equity in it, or the mortgage payment is low enough that you can rent it and positively cash flow it. If it's negatively cash flowing, but there's a tremendous chunk of equity at the end, that's an acceptable deal structure too. And in more recent years, we're even taking some of these where there is not a favorable payment at all. Like I can rent the place for $2,000 and the mortgage payment is $2,500. And what we will then do is modify the loan for the seller and then take the property subject to, so it's positively cash flowing. But this is all conceptual for you right now. Your job is to get your foot in the door and get the paperwork signed. When you do decide you want to record your deed, you are going to go to the courthouse and you are going to record it and you're going to pay transfer tax. The only time you're not going to pay transfer tax is if you put it into a land trust. If you've got one of these properties and you haven't recorded the deed yet and you want to put it in a land trust, hit us up. We'd be happy to help you, save you the money. Before you know it, you'll be unstoppable too. You have now entered the chain of title. I don't think you understand what a pain in the ass this could be if you own it in your name or if you own it in the name of your company. So in this particular transaction, I could show you a couple of these. I haven't got them on the slides for you. The deed comes out of the previous owner's name and is transferred to my original company, Salvation Home Buyers, which is a legal limited liability company. Okay. The mortgage stays in the name of the seller. So it's just like if the seller were to take his property out of his name and put it into an LLC for protection that it doesn't offer that much of. He's got to pay transfer tax. This is where the mortgage company, if they didn't like that transfer, could call the loan due. Now, since the mortgage debacle of 2008, I've noticed that as long as mortgage companies are getting payments, they don't care who they're from. They're just happy they're getting paid. There's other people that are not paying them. Okay. You could find a tenant buyer. That would be somebody who give you a large non-refundable down payment. You put them in the house, they pay you, you pay the mortgage, they pay you, you pay the mortgage, they pay you, you pay the mortgage. This goes on for months and years while you help them restore their credit and get pre-qualified for a loan. And interesting side note, I have found that when somebody gives you a large non-refundable down payment and you put them in a house under a use and occupancy agreement or as a tenant buyer, these people are nowhere near as bad as normal tenants. I mean, I've had people like this move out and I've actually given them their non-refundable down payment back because it's their home. They want to buy it. They want to own it. You go there, and instead of having holes punched in the walls, they go, I hope you don't mind, but we completely redid the bathroom. And we added a steam shower and a hot tub. And I'm sitting there going, wow, if this doesn't work out, my house is actually worth more. Next month, we're going to replace all the appliances and put in stainless steel. They're increasing the value of the property before they own it. There's pride of ownership. This is an excellent sign. Eventually, you're going to be in it. They pay you, you pay the mortgage cycle. If you're doing a tenant buyer use and occupancy thing, you're going to talk to whoever's doing your credit restoration. I'm going to bring them in a later presentation for you and show you how to monitor it. When they get to where they're qualified to get a mortgage, you draw up a new purchase and sales agreement. You give it to the mortgage broker you've collectively agreed on. And we're going to do one of these videos with our mortgage broker as well. And they get pre-qualified. They get cleared to close. You get together. You pay transfer tax again. If you were making money every month, that doesn't happen anymore. You sign a new deed. The buyer signs a new mortgage. If you were making money monthly, you have just killed the goose that laid the golden egg. And hopefully you got a big check for doing it. You need to have a bunch of these going on at once. So I'm thinking you guys are probably ready for some examples. Here we go. Wow. That is a shitty picture. All right. Picture it. I think it's like Valentine's Day, 2004. It's the first weekday after I quit my job, and I walk into a condo in Paterson, New Jersey. Looks like shit, and I walk in there with a partner who shall remain nameless, and I will never speak to them again. They actually also sued me later, and I beat them. They tell me exactly they know what they're doing, and I have no idea. I'm jobless. I'm going hard. They get a bunch of the wrong paperwork signed, right? I sell the house. You could do this back in 2004 because I had the deed and I fully thought that I owned it. They go, they get a mortgage, they get pre-qualified, there's a clear close. I go to the closing. We were going to actually record my deed at the closing, which in title terms would be called recorded simultaneously, okay, which is when you record two deeds at the same time. But mine would be the one that's referred to as prior to, which would be the first one, and then the second one would get recorded after. So the chain of title is established the correct way. These people got a mortgage. I handed my deed to the lawyer, and I found out that it was not only not for the correct state, but it was not in recordable format. I had not realized at the time what a potential crime or crime I had committed. My lawyer turned absolutely white, which is pretty hard to do because he was a black dude. And he went into the other lawyer's office. They had a discussion. They came back out and they said, we're going to help you fix this. They said, listen, I believe you're doing the right thing. You're helping this family out of foreclosure, and you're helping the buyer's family acquire a condo. It was a single father, so he can live in a better school district with his son. They actually gave me the paperwork, some of the paperwork, I should say, the deed and some of the other good stuff that I provide you with this course, so it does not happen to you. And yeah, Chris, I could have been locked up for this shit, but thank God I was doing the right thing, and there was no malintent, and everybody got happy, and everybody helped me, and I helped everybody. So stay positive, and fortunately, with what I've given you, you won't be making that same mistake. Here's what this particular deal looked like. There was a binder deposit of approximately $10. I told you I keep $10 bills everywhere. That's what I did. Purchase price for the condo was the outstanding debt, which was 74 grand. Okay. The mortgage was 60. There was 14,000 in back taxes, 2 years of back payments, transfer tax to record everything. It was an estimated approximately $600. And my sale price was 110. Okay. I gave everybody a seller's concession. They didn't need too much. I figured just to kind of grease the wheels and move everything along. And this particular property, I walked away with a little over $32,000. Again, this is my first year of business. So was that first assignment of contract. So 2 transactions within a couple months, and I am already making more than I would and keeping more than I would for a year at my job. Wow, this one's 2005. Forgive me. It might not be the right check. Anyway, moving forward. Here's another example of one. This is a condo in Jersey City Heights that I bought subject to its existing debt. Okay, another interesting situation. This particular one, again, $10 deposit. Okay, purchase price was the outstanding debt, which is $110,000, which was the mortgage, and $50,000 private mortgage, no payments, no interest. I think that's actually what the seller wanted, and that was how I secured his interest in the property on top of the mortgage. I had him sign a mortgage to me, right? So I acquired it subject to its existing debt, which was 110. And then after that, I think he wanted roughly $50,000. So we issued him a second mortgage with no payments and no interest. I don't think we recorded it. I think we just brought it to the closing table so he can get his check as the return of borrowed money. If the math doesn't add up, it's because this guy was kind of savvy and he knew even by discounting it and getting a little bit less, which 50 is what he wanted to walk with, he would keep more because it's now the return of borrowed money. There was a $1,700 and change unpaid water lien. I sold it, and I actually sold it to two sisters who were prison guards in Jersey City. Pretty cool people. They put them in advance. They paid me. I paid the mortgage. They paid me. I paid the mortgage. Selling houses to officers of the law or police people or people who work in prisons is always an excellent strategy because they need to maintain good credit for their jobs, and there are special loan programs for them. I gave everybody a $5,000 seller's concession. I believe this was like 2006 or 7, this deal. Oh, wow, it's 2005. This is still a good year. All right. My 2004 was good too. That is not too bad. Wow. If I did the math on that, I would be 26. Party on. Now, I've been told that some people don't make that much in a year. Personally, I don't believe them. I hope that's a pretty good explanation. If you guys have questions, feel free to reach out and contact us. This looks like one more. This is a subject 2 plus 1. And in this one, we're going to be talking about the house on the left. Okay. I did buy the house on the right. That's a story I'll give you later when we're talking about short sales and discounting. But first, I bought the one on the left. Later, I bought the one on the right as a referral. It happens all the time. We'll buy 2 or 3 houses on the same block, sometimes next to each other, sometimes across the street, very frequently from family. Again, how does this look? $10 deposit. And what was pretty unique about this one is this particular property was owned by a exotic dancer. A couple of years later, she was actually the bartender at my first bachelor party. And when I walked in, she jumped on me in front of everybody and gave me a hug and started giving me kisses and saying thank you. And nobody could figure out why. They didn't know the backstory. I bailed her out of foreclosure. $10 deposit, purchase price $398. Transfer tax is around $2,000. It's probably a little bit more. My sales price was $489. I did have to do some minor repairs in this particular property. I think there was a banister that was off and a couple of holes in the door. I did manage to pay everybody's closing costs. I think this particular mortgage company, and this is the mortgage company for your buyer, allowed me to give them a seller's concession for up to $15,000. They cannot keep what they don't use. So those are the closing costs. That's how you get these odd numbers. And my net proceeds on this was just a little over $76,000. This was another one where the payment wasn't too bad, and it was 2 units and an illegal basement unit where I will admit that I did rent it. It was sold to a Dominican family. Sister and her family lived upstairs. Brother and his family lived on the 2nd floor. And in the basement, grandma and grandpa lived in the illegal bedroom apartment, which is because they own it. They paid me. I paid the mortgage. They paid me. I paid the mortgage. I cleaned up their credit. They were happy. And we all lived happily ever after. And that is not too bad either, right? Now, problems, take a look at that if you want. More often than not, with my subject to deals now, if they're positively cash flowing, I don't sell them because I am more concerned with continuously growing, self perpetuating wealth and paying off hard assets to leave for my children at this point in the game. But in this situation, I really needed that big check like I needed oxygen. So you're going to have to figure out what you want to do with them. Problems and challenges with subject to deals. First big challenge is going to be seasoning. These things are not going to go quickly. So if you're thinking you got a property you want to flip quick, subject to is not the way. Many mortgage companies, all right, that are going to lend to your buyers are going to make you hold property for 6 months to a year before you can resell it to somebody taking out a new loan. So you record a new deed, it's 6 months till somebody else can buy that property, sometimes a year. And the one who makes that guideline is the lending institution for your buyer. You've entered the chain of title, so you are now responsible for property taxes. All right. I used to pay them. I didn't realize that if I was going to sell these properties quickly, property taxes don't report to my credit. They don't report to the seller or the previous owner's credit. And you can just let them pile up and pick them up in a year or even two with interest, but it helps your cash flow on these subject to deals. And all they're going to do is sell liens. It's just an additional lien that needs to get paid off at the final closing. And you will need property insurance, which there are two ways to do this. The first way to do it is you take your authorization to release information. You call up the mortgage company you ordered a payoff for, right? You then ask them, are they escrowing for taxes and insurance? If they are, who is the insurance company who's getting the payment? You contact that insurance company. You ask them to name you or your LLC as additionally insured. Once they've done that, nothing needs to change. You can make the same mortgage payment every month from now until the property is paid off. You are insured. If they won't do it, you need to call up a mortgage company and you need to make sure that you are insured by taking out a new insurance policy, then canceling the old one, then sending the new insurance policy to the old mortgage company that you've taken subject to and ask them to escrow for that payment. So when you make your mortgage payment, the insurance is paid as well. Make sure you're covered, because I have done a couple of these in my early days with no insurance, and I will be the first to admit I was a fucking cowboy and I got lucky. All right. I hope you guys have enjoyed that. There's the breakdown on subject to deals. I've given you the ins, I've given you the outs, same paperwork. Market, talk to sellers, make appointments, get in the door, get the paperwork signed, confirm the deal, cloud the title, power and control. And now it's time to make some money. In the next video, we're going to talk about short selling. And after that, I'm going to make one about the absolute assignment of rights, which I wasn't going to give to you, but you know what? I want to show you what's possible, and that's the way to wholesale properties to retail buyers. It's going to move quicker than a lot of these transactions. The checks are going to be bigger, and just promise me you're going to do something good with it, because I have had some people do some bad stuff with it, and, well, a lot of them are locked up now, all right? There's nothing wrong with a $100,000 deal, but if you have to do something that's not ethical or not wrong to do a $200,000 or $300,000 deal, I want to be the first one to advocate that you don't do it. I will see you in the next video. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.